We're going to start this month's watching brief with a couple of updates. When I say an update, sorry, and a couple of sort of things to keep an eye on, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I'll hand over to you to take us away with, I think, initially news of what happened next in the Tutankhamun statue story. Because actually, that was very fast moving, and I think it maybe a day or two after we recorded, Egypt requested something of Interpol, did they not?
That's right. Just to fill in very quickly, Christie's sold an 11-inch high brown quartz. But do you notice I use the imperial system, by the way? Like Jacob Rees-Mogg wants everyone to use imperial measurements.
Yeah, those really useful measurements, like 32nd of an inch. Yeah.
That's exactly that. Yeah, 11 inches or just under 30 centimeters. Quartz bust of a pharaoh, which has been identified as Tutankhamun. It was sold at Christie's for 4.7 million quid.
Uh-huh.
Before the sale went ahead, the Egyptian government complained to Christie's and said that they believed it might have been looted
From
from
Karnak.
Egypt and exported illegally.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, possibly, and in fact, Zahi Hawass, who many people will be aware of, the sort of the Indiana Jones of the Egyptian antiquities world,
Self-styled. Self-styled.
self-styled Indiana Jones of the
Yes.
Egyptian antiquities world. Yeah. Reckons has gone on the record as saying that he believes it comes from one of the temple complexes at Karnak.
Yeah.
Uh, what has happened is that the Egyptian National Committee for Antiquities Repatriation
Mm-hmm.
has asked the UK Foreign Office and UNESCO, or sorry, it asked the UK Foreign Office and UNESCO to stop the sale. They didn't. They didn't intervene. They saw it as a private matter. But now the Egyptians have asked Interpol to look into the history of the object and whether it is actually stolen.
Yeah.
And they also, it is also said, it's also been reported that the Egyptians have also hired a UK-based legal firm to pursue Christie's over the sale.
Mm. Okay.
So now, it has to be said that in the past there's been a fair amount of posturing on issues like this, most famously over Sekemka, the statue
Yeah.
of Sekemka.
Yeah.
When, in spite of there being, according to a number of authorities, legal reasons to try and intervene,
Mm-hmm.
nobody ever did.
No.
And the statue was last heard of being exported to the United States and has not been seen since. It may be that lessons have been learned from that, and the Egyptian government is being a bit more proactive this time. Watch this space, I think, is all I can say on that one.
Yeah. Okay. And then we come to some news coming from Lincolnshire, which you brought to my attention this morning, in fact.
This is a really sad story, but it's a very typical story. Basically, it's to do with the Usher Gallery. Now, the Usher Gallery is in Lincoln, city of Lincoln, and it is owned by the Lincolnshire City Council, Lincoln City Council, but the gallery space is occupied by the Lincolnshire County Council. So it's a facet of British democracy that you can have multiple layers of local authorities rather than just one. And what has happened is that Lincolnshire County Council has voted to basically downgrade the gallery and use some of the spaces for other services. So they're consolidating services into the building, which has the effect of making a very substantial archaeological and art collection homeless.
Yeah.
They're talking about 30,000 artifacts altogether, archaeological and artistic. For example, like a lot of local museums, it began as a bequest. And for example, it has a very important collection of miniature paintings. It's a substantial regional collection. It's now at risk. It's very sad. It's been commented, for example, that one of the Lincolnshire, the leader of the Lincoln Council, Councillor Rick Metcalfe, said that Heritage Services have sat with the County Council for more than 45 years. They're experts in the field and have been trusted in looking after the city's rich historical artefacts. It's very clear where the responsibility for the artefacts lies. We are very concerned the County Council no longer appears to take its role as custodian of these important works of art seriously.
Yeah.
Again, this is one that's going to run, I think.
Well, it is, but also it's probably worthwhile saying that unfortunately, it is only proper that other services are prioritised, and this is one of the weird things where, and I think we've received comments on the watching brief previously where people jump to presuming that we are putting the needs of archaeologists ahead of everyone else. So, for example, last month there was an interesting interaction with a gentleman who thought that in the US archaeologists are trying to stop and put out of business developers, as opposed to wanting developers to adequately fund their excavations, or their work, such as to be able to accommodate any excavation that is required, as is, for example, the case normally in the UK with a well-managed project. And in this instance, and I'm sure you agree that if it comes down to people's mental health, access to, for example, the ability to get crucial services or goods or documentation from the council, or just basic amenities, then it makes sense to have to use space for the good of living people. It's just a shame that it's at the expense of an archive. And
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and in that sense, funding.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, that view's been put by the executive member for Heritage at Lincolnshire County Council, who's a man called Councillor Nick Worth. And he said, we know there's a passionate minority who want to keep the Usher Gallery as it is, but we have to take a decision that's best for the county as a whole. So using the building as a base for registration, celebratory and coroner's services remains the recommendation. The kick, though, is in this one. He said, that said, the Usher Gallery Trust and Historic Lincoln Trust have shown interest in taking the gallery on, and we are open to that. This is possibly a manoeuvre to actually outsource the gallery to an outside body. A lot of local authorities are doing this. They're putting their their cultural services, their museum services out to arm's length organisations, so they're no longer on the council books, and that may be what this is all about.
Which it may well be, but the point still stands in so much as that's also an unfortunate byproduct of inadequate funding. In that sense,
absolutely,
which is a genuine shame. So the pressure is real, and I absolutely would not want to see living people suffer. So just in case someone wants to, just in case someone has been misled on that point, the archaeologists might think along those lines. Okay, and finally we have a new culture secretary.
Put out the bunting, sound the fanfare trumpets.
Yes.
We're averaging roughly a culture secretary a year at the moment.
Oh wow.
I'm just by the time this goes out, there'll be an article in the pipeline where I suggest that the Department for Culture, Media and Digital Culture, Media and Sport, the government departments responsible for heritage and
DCMS
and archaeology policy and so on, has the same problems with retaining staff that Spinal Tap has with retaining drummers, and the Hogwarts School of Wizardry and Witchcraft has in retaining professors of the defences against the dark arts.
Yeah.
In that we get through so many of them.
Yeah.
The new one is Nicky Morgan, who's actually an old face. She was Education Secretary. She was sacked by Theresa May. She then went on to be the chair of the very influential Treasury Select Committee, where she was actually a bit of a thorn in the government's side over Brexit. But now she seems to have swallowed the Brexit Kool-Aid and signed up to the cabinet. And for a do or die, we're going to leave on October the 31st. Come what may, and she's the culture secretary for as long as she lasts.
Come what may, you mean go what may? Way!
Oh, go what may. Actually, I think the Prime Minister the former Prime Minister got it absolutely right. She, while Boris Johnson was doing his first turn as Prime Minister, and it is a turn. It's watching Johnson. It's theatre. He's a performer. He's not a real politician. But not a very good one either. But she went off to the cricket.
You see, exactly. She's gone. She's now going to have the time of her life, and she gets to sort of, you know,
Interesting
decompress.
symbolism there, though, because when John Major left office in 1997, he went off to the cricket as well,
Mm.
and he's now seen as a respected elder statesman and
Sage.
sensible pair of
Yeah.
a sage indeed. Yeah, a sensible head compared to all the children that are running the nursery at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no,
anyway,
Nicky Morgan's the new.
yeah.
I was going to say, Nicky Morgan's the culture secretary. It remains to be seen whether she's around long enough to actually have any influence on policy whatsoever, because things are fluid.
Sorry, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah, she might be gone, by the end of the summer.
We may have a general election by October, and they're all gone, and we'll be talking about another kind of government. Who knows?
Yeah, I think we're all going a little bit mad, aren't we? Just like
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think that's probably enough of that. Actually, I think we probably ought to put the lid back on the put the swear jar back on the table.
Yep. Okay. Swear jar's back. No more B word. But nonetheless, those have been the updates and the things to keep an eye on. That we may well return to next month. Actually, possibly in the case of Lincoln, we'll see how it goes.
Sure. Actually, there's just one other thing I would say, Mark. That for anybody who follows the media, they'll know that July and particularly August are called the silly season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it's traditionally when everybody goes on holiday and there's very little news generated, and it's when you get all the silly the silly stories like great white shark spotted in English Channel, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think we're in for a lot of that in the next couple of months.
We're entering that, but also it's going to be hard to distinguish that from real news as well. Anyway,
you might say that. I couldn't.
Sorry, the swear jar is back. The lid is on.